¿Qué onda, canijos? That means what up, homies? So welcome to another one for Al Cuerpo Boxing, which means to the body. So let's get with it. Let's talk some boxing. All right, so as you guys know, within our beautiful sport of boxing, the latest topics and what's trending is Canelo versus Crawford. And mainly geared and powered by industry, pro, former champs, current champs, you know, the whole shebang, talking about this fight. And one of the recent topics, unfortunately, is the whole ped game in boxing. And I wanted to make a service to boxing fans and those who follow me that, if you guys know me, I've always been critical that our sport, as small as it is, realistically, it's a very small sport, very closed. We shouldn't suffer from criticism of PEDs as if we're held to the highest standard, right? Because one theme is, many have said that, oh, well, if there's fighting involved, if there's combat involved, then it's not the same as other sports. That's a whole misconcepted, if I'm saying that correctly, idea on how to evaluate and criticize the sport of boxing, okay? So first things first, and you guys that are real to the game and that are real to sports in general, mostly practitioners, maybe, I don't know. When I mean by practitioners, obviously I mean boxing, but all sports. If you're like a, let's say, all-American athlete, you might have some empathy for what I'm going to say. But when it comes to boxing, first and foremost, PEDs in elite level sport is nothing new, guys. It's nothing new. It's not so much a transcendence of cheating, and I'm talking about boxing in particular. I can go to generalized sports, but in boxing, where once upon a time, was mostly controlled by the mafia, who knows what type of stimulants were used in the fight, right? Such as, the salts, what were being used in gloves back in the day, dives. It was that nasty back in the day, and it was not an even playing field. For those of you that like to use the term even playing field, it's a better idea to compare what's going on now with PEDs versus what was being done back in the early days when we're talking about even playing field. Because if anything, nowadays it's more I wouldn't say even, but it's even, since I think all elite level athlete is on some sort of gear. It doesn't necessarily mean cheating. We'll go more into that, but when it involves a lot of money, there's complications, all right? But as far as like how combat sports was back in the earlier days, there's definitely been a progression, without a doubt. There's been progression. And even like the inspection of gloves, guys. You ever thought about that? The inspection of gloves in modern day boxing, and you have to ask yourselves why. Even from the way you're doing reps, right? Think about that stuff. Controlled environment versus how it was in the early days of boxing, which, in my opinion, without a doubt, it's not even theory, but in the early days of boxing, a lot of shady stuff was going on when it came to gloves, man. Unfortunately, that's what it was. So shout out to those greats of the past that are no longer with us, that had to endure that in the sport. And just imagine their state of mind in those times, what they acknowledged, what they were up against. Also in American boxing, in a time of like racial divide was big. Just imagine those times, okay? So go light on what's going on nowadays. Don't be a little girl and cry about stuff. Or no offense to the girls, but I think you guys know what I mean. So first things first right now. So going back to Crawford and Canelo, as far as the theme of PEDs, let me just say this. And those of you that know me, I've said it for the longest, probably about a year ago, when I met this guy on the YouTube game, because I was getting into the involvement of advancing a channel and whatnot. But I believe his name was Frank Boxing or Frank Bay Boxing. Nice young guy from California. He started introducing me to other channels. Another channel called BDA Boxing. Go ahead and check out that channel. Really, really good set of guys that go on the panel and talk boxing. It's interesting, right? When you go into boxing, you'll learn there's so many different streams and all this kind of stuff, and you come to admire and respect just general opinion, right? From practitioners, non-practitioners, and guys that really follow the sport of boxing like nerds. This is what it is. I don't follow like that, but anyways, BDA Boxing. Go ahead and check out that channel. Go ahead and subscribe. I would mention other channels that I normally or frequently go to more, but those are mostly in Spanish, so forgive me. Those other cats is another different culture of it. And ironically, they don't really speak much about PEDs, but we do at times to make a point, especially when we're talking about like Canelo Alvarez and this other stuff. But a lot of guys don't understand the context of the topic at hand, and probably that's good for them, man. Maybe you shouldn't know, but I advise you guys to learn more about what's going on the political side of things. You got to know about PEDs in boxing, okay? So anyways, that one cat, Frank Bay Boxing, introduced me to that channel. We're talking, and I had told Frank, I'm assuming his name is Frank, but I had told him on the implosion that was incoming for boxing. And this is before Canelo even signed to the Arabs, to Turkey al-Sheikh. Because I saw it. I envisioned it. I knew how to connect the dots. I know how to connect the dots, mostly because also I'm very motivated to perhaps one day get into boxing as a business, and guide my son. I think my son has a lot of potential to be a star boxer in the future. And the kid is strong, man. Since he was born, he just had a different state of mind, a lot of testosterone and aggression. That's all debatable if that's an advantage in boxing, but obviously it would be. But anyways, the reason I like to connect the dots is because that also favors the betting odds, right? If you're a gambler, you kind of want good information, probable results, or most likable results, the end results, sorry. And so as I had told Frank that there would be an implosion in boxing once the Arabs got a hold of Canelo Alvarez. Why? Because we all know Canelo Alvarez, since Floyd Mayweather left, has been the backbone of star power and earnings in the sport of boxing. Not Tyson Fury or Usyk. Luckily for them, they were the first ones to spearheaded into the Arab investments, right? Because I think the Arabs saw that the UK has more travelers than the Americas that go to their country for religious purposes, right? The pilgrimages. Because if you guys do your research and metrics and stats, well, most of the travels that are towards Saudi Arabia involve religious travels, okay? It makes sense, right? I mean, what other reason would there be? And right now, that's the whole point of the Saudi Arabian sports washing, is that a lot of people worldwide, particularly in the West, they understand what's at hand with the humanitarian laws, how quote women are treated, or just the culture of women in that country. So you have to be aware and cautious when you travel to Saudi Arabia, what's at hand, right? So that's one of the reasons why the tourism isn't really that big, and that's why the religious travels are big when you're going to Saudi Arabia, such as the pilgrimages to Mecca and whatnot. And I guess maybe a small percentage of curiosity, what has Saudi Arabia got to offer, right? But just so you guys know, that's what it is. And so from a Saudi perspective, when you're trying to control different territories around the world, you're trying to reform your government, you want more people to come, you have to go to each country by metric, who's traveling more to your country, right? And so obviously the UK, because they're in the West, they're similar to the United States in culture, but there's a lot of Muslims in the UK and they do a lot of travels out there. So that's the whole point of why they wanted to invest a lot in Joshua, Fury, also other parts of Europe, and push, guys like Usyk, who has a kind of more complicated scenario where he was also, Ukraine versus Russia. That's a different type of perspective. But anyways, it's all inclusive of what they're trying to do. They're trying to get power around the world. But anyways, they got Canelo Alvarez. And I knew that once they got a hold of Canelo Alvarez, all right, and this is, keep in mind that Tyson Fury and what's his name, Joshua Usyk, they're making huge bags with the Arabs, bigger bags than they ever made before within Western or European territories, right? Exaggerated amounts of money being thrown into them, and that's just the Saudi style. Excuse me. I had a nice breakfast, hash browns and eggs. And so, they're investing on guys like Neymar, Ronaldo, the Formula One racing, golf. I'm hearing also like the cricket. They're throwing so much money. So money's not a problem to the Arabs. So think about it. If Canelo has always been the highest earner in boxing, just imagine what it would have been like, or what it would be now, right? Now that they got a hold of Canelo, and lo and behold, Canelo's getting the most. All right, it's said that Canelo's going to get 150 for Crawford. Canelo mentioned that price, and this is why I said many months ago that the PBC, to their credit, they were very smart, because they're the ones that coached Canelo. When Canelo had mentioned his price for Benavidez or Crawford when he was being asked, he was still part of the PBC, and he was still saying good things about Al Haymon. So think about it. Canelo was coached, because Haymon and the PBC, they know that when Canelo goes on camera, people are going to ask him questions. Industry is going to ask him questions. Opposing parties are going to ask Canelo questions. So Canelo had to be coached, and carefully coached, on what he would say when the time came when he's asked particular questions. So I'm more than sure, Al Haymon and those that his managers, they said, look, Canelo, if you're asked about Crawford, who Crawford at that time was already being embraced by Turki Al-Sheikh. And also, like Tyson Fury was making his bags in the Usyk fights, they said, look, Canelo, if they ask you anything about the Saudi involvement and mega fights, this is the price you got to throw, because you're worth at the very least that, right? So it makes sense. If Tyson Fury is making more than 100 million with the Arabs, and Canelo's, let's say, a factor of 3 to 4 times more than Tyson Fury, well, then do the math, right? So that way Canelo's saying 150 or 200 million is perfectly fine. I said that many months ago. It just makes sense. If you're an investor, if you're a business and you want to evaluate how much you're going to pay someone, you got to go by a meritocracy, right? So 150 to 200 million for mega fights with the incoming of Saudi sports washing wasn't something out of the ordinary. Or actually it was out of the ordinary, because it's never been happened before. But when it comes to a government that has unlimited funds to do these things for sports washing, hey man, you might as well throw out a number and play their game, right? So that's what they did. Unfortunately with Canelo, because many thought that he was 100% loyal to the PBC, since Canelo was smart with his handlers, he was always kind of solo. Once a contract ended, I'm talking about the PBC, he would go somewhere else, right? And unfortunately, the PBC, they couldn't match what the Arabs were about to bring, right? They couldn't match that. Impossible. There's no way the PBC could match 100 or 150 million guarantees. So what did PBC try to do in the last 2 years? They had to try and make the Benavidez fight at the very least. They asked Jake Paul to make propaganda videos to do the Canelo fight, right? And that's why you saw when Canelo left, you saw all those videos about Canelo not being loyal. And this was like mostly PBC affiliates. Connect the dots, guys. It's not complicated. So anyways, back to what I was saying about Frank Bay and the others. Sorry for going on a tangent here, but I'm giving you some premise to the conversation, or some context to the conversation about Canelo's implosion in boxing now that he's involved with the Arabs. And this also kind of involves Crawford, but each to their own on how they want to, collect earnings or supersize their earnings. So shout out to Crawford and Canelo. If you've seen my videos, I did all this stuff before. Crawford is the guy that brokered the deal of getting Canelo to the Arabs. So that's why I believe Canelo and Crawford there's no animosity. They have a mutual respect for each other. Why, guys? Because they two together, Canelo and Crawford, they formulated a big bag for themselves and for future stars that are going to get into boxing, that align themselves with Turki Al-Sheikh. Namely like Benavidez, right? Benavidez like the first star from the PBC to jump ship. Shout out to David for doing that. And you guys know me and many channels, I was saying that before anybody, that's what David needed to do, all right? And David, some of his affiliates, they would go around these channels and they would hear. So shout out to myself for that, man, because I like to keep it 100% and real. Do what's best for you, for your family, as far as longevity and long-term earnings, right? Generational wealth. And shout out to Benavidez for taking that advice. It's my theory, guys. But anyways, back to the theme about pets. And I hope you guys like this, so you guys know what I'm talking about. I like the freestyle and I speak it 100%. But as far as the theme, where I always tell friends and others, don't talk about pets in boxing, because it creates a loophole, a paradox. And we like to jump around here and there when citing circumstances, right? So if you mention Canelo, then you're going to get a horde of other fans jumping somewhere else and stating, well, this fighter's done this fighter's been involved with this. Why don't you mention this? And yada yada yada. So this is normal and common in boxing. It's nothing new. Maybe I might cite it if I remember, but I don't need to because I prefer fans to not bring it up. Don't do our sport a disservice to cry about peds because, like I said, if you guys know me, boxing isn't perfect. It's the Wild West. Nobody's perfect, and it is what it is, man. And because in the Olympic level, man, Olympic level, guys, governments, they hide things. Governments hide things at the Olympic level. All right, what does that mean? The very best athletes of the world, they're securely and properly guided so that they don't have to fail tests. That's the reality, guys. If you don't like to hear it, sorry, but that's just the way it is. It's been like that for who knows how long. And lo and behold, for those of you that don't know, Victor Conte, that was where Victor Conte came from, okay? He was known not just from like commercial star athletes in the Americas, all right? Like you can mention like Bonds or whatever, but he focused, I believe, in the, I forgot what categories in the Olympics, but running and sprinting, right? In that, where gold medalists were caught. Their medals were revoked, and they were helped by Victor Conte, all right? So think about it. You honestly think the United States, one of the most badass governments in the world for, who knows, for more than a century or two, right? You think they wouldn't know about what was going on? I mean, come on, guys. If they know that Russians or Ukrainians, Japanese, Chinese, UK, if they know that they have to combat other scientists in the game that are doing advanced drugs, of course the USA is going to protect themselves too, man. So it's kind of like what they do is they create rogue environments where they pretend to not know who Conte was, but realistically they knew, you know? And forget about the whole theory about plea deals or bargains that are Conte. I mean, at the end of the day, Conte, if he wanted to, and other rogue guys that are affiliated with Conte could whistleblow against the USA and knowing that they knew about it, all right? So everybody rather just keep it quiet. They, right, Conte and the groups, and they go solo. But again, guys, what's the theme? We're talking about association, all right? And for those of you guys, don't get spooked. I'm very objective about this, okay? I'm all American by heart, all right? Of course, I got a bias to Mexican boxing, but I'm all American by heart. I'm an American, man. I grew up in the United States, all right? So in theory, I like to protect my own. I like to protect my other American fans too, but we got to keep it 100 and objective, okay? So when we're talking about association, and I'm going to bring up the best analogy and metaphor or realism, so that way you guys can, and I said to myself, I don't want to try and curse in this video, but these things really, they get me rooted for the example I'm going to tell you right now, so you guys understand what association means and how a lot of us that connect the dots, we're not dumbasses, okay? So association, all right? Right now, there's a lot of heat with Trump and the Epstein files, okay? Now, whether or not you want to believe it or not, think about Epstein and Trump before Trump's presidency, all right? How much was Trump involved in knowing about these things, right? All right? Because knowing about it is one thing, being a part of it, doing actions is another thing, and yada yada, the complications. But think about how bad it is if Trump, even during his presidency, when it became that he knew about these kind of things. That's a red flag, guys. Meaning that you don't do anything about it. Like you don't take initiative out of the love and empathy as humans, that when children are involved, man, that crosses the line, guys. That's usually the case for most themes worldwide, all right? Child trafficking for sexual activity. I mean, it's disgusting, guys. It's freaking disgusting. So that's what is meant by association, all right? You guys are all adults here. Ask yourselves, how much percentage or what did Trump know about association with the Epstein cat? These leaked files. How much does the American government want to protect their presidency? It's not so much about protecting Trump. It's about the American government protecting the idea that an American president is pure and shouldn't be involved with this. Of course they're going to protect the American presidency. It could be any president's name, Trump or whatever. But Trump is that right now. Trump, who's had shady things in the past, such as the involvement, you know, with scamming people with some business university or what's that, porn I mean, guys, nobody's perfect. We get it. But when it starts to come with children, guys, it becomes nauseating and disgusting. And especially for us, for those of us who are parents, guys. You know this, man. If we want to be 100% humans and to the heart, you guys know this. It's wrong, guys. That's what is another implosion about it. So ask yourselves the association of Trump and Epstein. So let's go back to Conte. Conte, guys, SNAC, VADA, fighters that are associated with Conte. If you guys are thinking, nah, well, Conte's completely reformed. There's no way he could do wrong. That's the same stupid dogmatic approach as people would say, well, no, Trump, how could he be involved with Epstein? No, Trump's 100% innocent. You get the comparison, guys. Association. Of course, Trump and Epstein, that's a more of a sensitive ordeal, right? Because it involves the whole world of the beautiful children of the world. That's just, there's no, you can't correct that, guys. You can't correct it. So now let's go back to Conte. If you've seen all the, and we're ironically, I'm talking about the government level, right? The president's government, Conte, the Olympics, government. So nobody's perfect. People do mistakes. People do shady things, all right? So if right now, if the world and the Americans are seeing what Trump's involved with, an American president, guys, what he's involved with right now. So what has Conte got to lose with his background or the current situation? Because boxing is not regulated, guys. It's not regulated, okay? We get that. So sorry for bringing up Trump, but that was the example about it. So now let's go back to just talking about Conte and this whole SNAC thing. Now you're seeing a lot of channels exploding with doubt. And I told everybody from the get-go, once Canelo versus Crawford happens, you're gonna see a resurgence or an impact of videos being around the SNAC thing. It's not about the idea that Canelo fans are scared. I thought about this today. It could very well be, and I know it's connected without a doubt. It may very well be that industry, the guys behind the dark alleys of boxing, they knew the time as Canelo and Crawford comes near, now would be a perfect time to create propaganda on the whole Reynoso team. So that way, before fans start exploding on the whole SNAC, Conte, and Crawford, well, at least they have like a Reynoso narrative to fall back on, right? Think about that for a second. Because right now, it's Reynoso versus SNAC. That's a theme, right? But think about it. Ask yourselves, why is it that even a divide in African-American culture, why is there a lot of questions towards Crawford lately? How did it happen? Who influenced who? Were it Mexican channels starting that stuff? Were it the Black American culture started that? Were the Westerners, the Europeans? I mean, I know the answer. That's a rhetorical question because there's another British channel that I like to go to. His name's Rapstar Boxing. Go and check out his channel. He's a really cool guy. He's a lot of satire, but he's a good guy. Go check out his channel. I've talked about this stuff with him before, man. More than a year plus, man. When I had a different alias. All right, I used to go by Switch Hitter, and he was open about it, and he was 100% about it. So he knows these things. These things have been in the talks for the longest. And I like guys that keep it 100%, 100, okay? Everybody has a different character, different agenda on how to run channels, but it's nice when you're part of guys that keep it 100 or know the things, that happen. And so right now, guys, I want you guys to just don't focus so much on the PEDs with Conte, VADA, and SNAC, and Crawford, and all those involved with SNAC, versus the whole world of Reynoso and Canelo, right? Put it like this. How about this? It balances out. How about that? It crosses each other out. So with that being said, if all you guys see that it's a party of 50-50 around the world and everybody's on gear, even the Olympic level worldwide for decades, what are we really complaining about, guys? Again, is it as bad as the early days in the century when guys had loaded gloves and were taking stuff back? I mean, back then, yayo and salts was heavy duty, man, especially in between rounds when you're sitting on the stool. And I've seen it in modern day boxing too, where guys are hiding, scents in the towels, right? You're, breather. I mean, come on, guys. You're not stupid here. It is what it is. And at the same time, you want to protect your guy, right? Because there's a lot of adrenaline going. You might get a fighter that doesn't want to quit and he's going to keep going. But at the same time, when you have all that adrenaline, when you're trying to survive, when you're in the survival mode, the fight or flight, you can really impact your health in a negative, and the trainer knows that, okay? What can he do? Sometimes you stop it, you can give some little fillers here and there in between rounds. That things happen. It happens in boxing, okay? So how do I end this as far as us understanding and empathizing what's going on in the game? I think the only gripe that I got against SNAC and Conte is that when I mean it's an uneven playing field, is that Conte has had some inconsistencies or contradictions on his involvement with VADA, even though I'm more than sure he was part of the creation of VADA back in the day, at least consultation, elite level consultation, right? And it's funny how a lot of SNAC fighters, their fighters get canceled or another fighter gets caught, and Conte's kind of vocal about it. It's kind of iffy, right? So in other words, when it comes, here's my gripe. Focus on this, guys. When it comes to the idea about random follow-ups, random guys, and there's a conflict of interest with VADA, right? SNAC and VADA, Conte and VADA. Random kind of becomes a paradox or uneven playing field, because I don't believe for a second that Conte, Conte's the one that represents all-American boxing at the highest level, if we want to be honest, right? Supposedly he's the innocent SNAC system. So let's say that Conte is the de facto, right? So it would make more sense, and we're stepping back to Olympic level protocols where governments get insecure about findings, who's doing what, this and that. So in other words, I'm more than sure, and this is my opinion, guys, okay? This is me. Don't take my word for it, but this is me. I think that Conte, on the down low, he knows when random checkups are going to happen for the opposing fighter and perhaps even his fighters, guys. Even if he had a hookup for his internal guys about random checks, right? If he knows the date or the time, maybe a day or two beforehand or something like that, it's just shady, guys, man, to me. Again, think about old school protocols of involvements when you connect the dots. I just think, honestly, the American outfits, they're going to have their favoritism bias. Unfortunately, like I said, boxing is not regulated. It's the Wild West. So that's just my theory, that Conte and the down low is going to get insiders when it comes to random checking. That's all you need, guys. If you have insiders and you've got pool on random checks, then you have a head start, right? You have a head start. And it becomes crazy. It becomes crazy. But anyways, that's what I have on this, guys. Maybe if you guys want to chime in, let me know what you guys think. I would love to reply on some of your comments. If you think I'm over-exaggerating, if you think I'm in the middle, if you think I'm partial, objective, which I'm more than sure you guys think I am. But as far as Canelo and Crawford, guys, it's all right, man. Don't worry about it. It's not really about... Please, and I don't like this narrative of guys saying that Canelo fans are scared or Crawford fans are scared. It all depends on what headline we're talking about, right? About being knocked out, or if it's going to the cards or whatnot. I just don't see any type of theory of being scared of anything like that. We would only know in the aftermath. For example, if it went the full 12 rounds, and let's say Crawford looked timid, like in the Madrigal fight, and Crawford really didn't do much, and then Crawford gets the win. Then you could start something like that. Then maybe you could theorize, but then again, at the same time, the way I see it, I see Canelo's going to really hurt Crawford, so why would I even think about or theorize something like that, right? For me, if you guys know me, I've been saying it for the longest, that I think Bomac and Crawford, they have a plan, a designed plan, to when it starts getting really heated in that storm, they're going to call it quits on the stew, or Bomac's going to throw in the towel. By design. Why? Because there's more fights for them down the line. Turkey likes Crawford. The Arabs like Crawford. He's an all-American athlete. Crawford is a vital part of the Saudi investment. It doesn't mean that they're going to give it to him to win, because that's the same thing with Joshua and Fury. They're still giving them bags. Why? Because the UKs are commodity investments for the Saudis. So even though they lost, they would still pay them big purses. So it's okay if Crawford loses. I think Turkey understands that at the end of the day, they're still going to use him for their Saudi sports washing. And hopefully we get even better fights for both Canelo and Crawford afterwards. But that's what I got, guys. It's been a nice 30-minute run on this, guys. I'll catch you guys on the next one for Al Cuerpo, boxing to the body. And I'll catch you on the next one, man. Peace.